Hi there. Hey, it seems like I'm always apologizing for my dress. I just got out of the shower and so my hair's wet. Anyway, I don't always look like this. Honest. I wanted to go ahead and answer some of the questions that have been posted at the blog and in private email. And the first set of questions that I want to address are from Angela. And Angela is a mom, a stay-at-home mom of young children. She asks in her email, or in her comments, I am a stay-at-home mom of 2 little kids under 2 and am trying 0 to 5 eating after a period of lots of restrictive dieting and exercising. And I just want to interject right there and say, well, goodness, Brianna, I just want to say congratulations for recognizing the need to escape from restrictive dieting and exercising, and there is such freedom found in 0 to 5 eating. As you may know, I have a history of restrictive dieting and exercising, and so I know where you have been. Please extend grace to yourself as you go through this process. You will find that the path, it takes time. It takes time to renew your mind. And the dieting mentality may be obvious at first, like you're not going to count calories anymore, for instance. But over time, as things get better, you may still be affected by the dieting mentality. It may be very subtle. And so you'll just want to extend grace to yourself as you learn to expose some of the lies that you've believed over a long period of time, probably. At least I know I have, and it's still all this many years into it. What am I, 18 years into this? That's not right, 14 years into this. And I still notice some things about the way I think that are dieting mentality related. Anyway, Brianna goes on to say, some days are good and some are not so good relative to 0 to 5 eating. And I just felt like I wanted to interject there too. If we were having a conversation, I would probably not interrupt, but I would want to come back to this and say, one of the things that we tend to do as human beings it's related to our dieting pasts, here's that dieting mentality, is we kind of categorize our days or our eating as good or bad. And we hold ourselves to the standard of perfection. You know how it goes. If I've eaten my 1,200 calories and no more, I had a good day. If I had a hot fudge sundae on top of that, I had a bad day. And we've got to let go of that. And that standard of perfection is one that God doesn't even hold us to in this area. He has promised us in Philippians 1:6 that He will finish the work that He has begun. That indicates that there's a process, and we need to be willing to extend grace to ourselves as our God does, that this will be a process. It's sanctification. It's gradual and progressive over the course of our entire lives. And Brianna, I don't know how old you are. I'm guessing you're probably in your 20s, maybe early 30s. You might be on this planet another 50 years. And so it might take you 50 years to really feel like you have this wired. And that's okay. We're progressing, and that's the most important thing. What I want to encourage all of us to do is to capture this moment. Let's be in this moment with our God. Let's capture this moment for His glory and our good with a choice right now. Okay, in this moment, you're making a choice to watch this video. You're probably not stuffing your face, I hope. Okay, now we have another chance. Here's another moment, and we can capture this moment for God's glory and our good. Good, you did it. There's 2 moments already. And we do this progressively, one at a time, staying in the moment. And you know what? If we have a moment where we make a poor choice, an unwise choice, we extend grace to ourselves. And we say, you know what? I'm going to do better in this moment now, the new one that I have right now. I am going to choose this moment to extend grace to myself and make a choice for God's glory and my good. And He died that Jesus Christ died that grace might be extended to us. Our holy God extends grace to us. I think it offends the Lord when we don't extend grace to ourselves. So that's just an aside there, really. But in any event, I want to just challenge all of us to expect good days and bad days, but better even to not categorize them that way. Let's walk in the moment. Now on to your question, Brianna. You say, I struggle with boredom and emotional eating. You're like many of us. Because I'm home all day with not much to do except care for my babies, food is always available, and it's very hard to not go to it when things aren't going well. Any suggestions? I understand well this struggle. I just have to say, we used to call in my home 3 to 5 p.m. the pit hour because everyone would be tired and we would all melt down at the same time, it seemed. So I don't know you, Brianna, so I don't know what your standards are for the way you raise your family, and please don't be offended at me kind of addressing certain things, because I have a broader audience than just you who I don't even know. Again, thank you for the question, but it brought to my mind some standards that God led my husband and myself to have for our family as we were raising young babies. First of all, what I found was so helpful, aside from eating, is to structure life for my children and myself and my husband too, so that we had times where the children just were expected to do certain things. For instance, they were expected to be in their bedrooms, even as young children, until 7:30 in the morning. That way, I knew I could have a slow start to my day. I could spend time with the Lord. This took training. It wasn't easy, and I well remember the screaming fits. But in time, my children learned to play by themselves. And you can adjust the time to be whatever time works for your family. But that way, I knew that I had that blessed time until, in our case, 7:30, to just be still and be quiet and have my leisurely time in the morning before everybody got up and was active and expecting me to do things for them. In addition to that, we would have quiet rest time every day. My kids still remember quiet rest time. And it was an hour every day that even if they didn't sleep, and your children are young enough, they probably do sleep. But whereas they got older, I mean, seriously, my kids and I had quiet rest time. I homeschooled. So even though we homeschooled, we still had quiet rest time until my kids were at least 10. And by that time, it didn't mean lay down in your bed. It just meant a quiet time in your room for you to be quietly doing something and for me to be quietly doing something. And that was a chance for me to pull away from the whining and the crying that sometimes happened, especially with homeschooling, it seemed like, and focus on giving my heart what it needed. And then there's two more things that we did. One was kind of on and off, and that was what we called couch time for Mommy and Daddy. When my husband would come home from work, we had to train this in the kids. This was tough, but we trained them, and they began to not only respect it, but they began to look forward to it. And it was couch time. This was Mommy and Daddy's time to sit on the couch together and look in each other's eyes, welcome each other back into each other's lives at the end of the day, and kind of catch up for a few minutes. And it was understood that you leave Mommy and Daddy alone during that time, and then afterwards, Daddy will give you some of his time as well. Again, it took training. It was hard, but we found that this practice really helped a lot with our kids feeling more secure or rested in, I think, in the relationship that my husband and I had. There's as they got older, there were some screaming fits that would happen at odd times of the night, and as the couch time began to be a priority for my husband and myself, those screaming fits in the middle of the night went away, and we wondered if maybe they had those fits partly because it was the only time Daddy and Mommy were together in their company. And so when they see us together after Daddy would get home from work, they see us together, although it's hard for them not to be in the middle of it, they can be trained, and there's a sense of security that comes from my Mommy and Daddy love each other. So I don't know if that's something that you guys do or could do, but I highly recommend it. It was a real blessing in our home. And then the fourth thing that we structured our life to do was absolutely bedtime at 7:30. And again, this took training, but it was a hill to die on in our home, and it was worth it because the kids fell into place. By a certain age, they knew 7:30 they weren't to be coming out, and it was our time, my husband's and my time. What this does for me is it helps me know I'm going to get that quiet time, get that peaceful time. I can clock out, and obviously moms never get to clock out, but in a very real way, my busy duties of the day would end at a certain time. Again, no matter what your schedule is like, see if you can't arrange it where you have a boundary established for your kids. If you haven't already. And again, I don't know you, so I hope this doesn't offend you, but somebody out there who might watch this video might benefit from that. It saved our lives. I know it may not seem practical for some people, but we can all figure out what is practical. And certainly, some homes don't really have boundaries for their children, and I don't know that we're doing ourselves any favors, and certainly not our kids. Okay, so on to the eating part, and I do believe this is connected. With those boundaries in place, then I know that I'm going to have that time where my emotions are going to get a chance to be quelled. in the company of my husband, in the company of the Lord, a quiet time. So that helps a little bit. If you could have 4 times out of each day where you know you're going to get quiet, it's pretty helpful during those times when they're screaming. Another really big deal then is, since you say you struggle with running to food when things are emotional, when things aren't going well, and I hate to even suggest this to somebody who's coming out of a dieting background, but it's something for you to take to God and pray about. And that is to prayerfully consider asking God if even though all foods are lawful, all foods are permissible, if perhaps it is wisest, it is most beneficial right now for you to not have certain foods in the house that you know are go-to foods when you're stressed. Like, for instance, for me, it probably now and forever and in the past, I don't want to have a bag of M&Ms in my home, one of those great big bags of M&Ms. I know people who can have candy dishes out. I can't do that. I am not free to do that. So, and I'm okay with that because I'm free to do a lot of other things. And so for me, that's a long season. I don't expect to ever have candy dishes with candy in them, chocolate in them in my home. But there have been seasons where I haven't had certain kinds of cookies or because I'm a real sweetaholic, certain ice cream in my home because I was in a place where I knew I would run to those foods if I was emotional. So again, take that with a grain of salt and evaluate with the Lord whether or not this is a season for you to do that. Okay, I'm going to shut this video off and do a part 2 because I'm going on a little long. So here we go.